Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Cover to Cover. You're here with Mo,
Andrea,
and Morgan.
Today we want to talk about Neil Gaiman's book that empowers young readers, Emma Watson's interview with Margaret Atwood, Tom Brady's new book, and the success that pre-ordering offers, as well as some additional author news and happenings in the world. But first, what we would like to do is just take a moment to honor those who helped influence the books we read as kids, our teachers. We didn't always love our teachers, but our teachers were always making us read and helping us learn what types of things we enjoyed reading. And some of the best book characters were teachers. So today we are going to honor our favorite teachers in literature.
I'd like to honor Hamish Abernathy from The Hunger Games. And so I love learning from books. Self-help isn't super my genre, so I much prefer learning from characters by seeing their growth and seeing how they help other characters grow. So for Hamish, he's the only surviving victor in his district, and he trains tributes and watches them die year after year. So this brings a lot of loneliness and alcoholism in his life, so he's more of an unconventional drunken master type teacher. But our heroine Katniss couldn't have survived without him, and I think he's the best kind of teacher because as he's teaching, you don't feel in that moment that you're being taught, and you realize later. And I think he's also a good reminder that no one's perfect, and I think that's a great thing to teach.
Love it. Well, I would like to honor Miss Stacy from Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. Miss Stacy inspired the best in her students, and in fact, she inspired Anne Shirley to become a teacher herself. Now, I love her so much because she reminds me of several inspirational teachers that I have had. I really wasn't a good student until I got to college, but I had teachers like Miss Singer in first grade, Mr. Powers my senior year of high school, Mr. Harden, who was actually my yearbook teacher. These teachers saw the best in me, and they inspired me and gave me a love for literature. So Miss Stacy reminds me of those, and that's why I just love her and would like to honor her today.
Oh, she's so great. And I would like to honor Professor Minerva McGonagall from the Harry Potter series. Professor McGonagall was a very stern but kind woman. Her lessons were incredibly mesmerizing, and her heart was full of love and compassion. She always led by example, and she would give anything to protect her students, and she did in the end. And also, she was an animagus, which means that she could morph into an animal at will, which is totally cool. And there were only 7 registered animagi in the Harry Potter universe. Of course, there were those unregistered ones, but we won't talk about that. But she was one of those cool people. I think it's a testament to how great she was at magic and how amazing she is, and she deserves to be honored. So I feel like teachers have been really inspirational, and I love seeing them in literature. And I like what you said about learning lessons without realizing you're being taught to. Mm-hmm. That's such a great thing that books in general do for us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I pick up book after book, and I get so connected to characters and how they live their everyday life, and I definitely incorporate so much of that in my everyday life.
Yeah, so just more ways to draw inspiration. And speaking of books and characters that can teach us good moral values and such, Neil Gaiman has a book out right now to help empower young readers, and it's getting a boost from an organization called A Mighty Girl.
Neil Gaiman penned a reimagined version of Snow White called The Sleeper and the Spindle. In Gaiman's version, she hangs up her wedding dress and swaps it out for chainmail and a sword, and sets out on a quest to rescue her fellow princess, Sleeping Beauty, and her people. The book is illustrated by artist Chris Rydella and features dark overtones and themes, and is suggested for those 12 and up. The organization A Mighty Girl is featuring the book as part of their Empowering Reads for Young Girls.
Gaiman has a great quote, or I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but he said something like this: You don't need princes to save you. He says, I don't have a lot of patience for stories in which women are rescued by men.
I know that this quote is giving you some feelings, Morgan. It is very kind of anti-fairy tale sentiment, because we have so many stories where women are kind of in distress, or there's some part of the story where the prince is coming to save the princess. Mm-hmm. And there is that element to that that's really classic and that we do love, but kind of our wave of feminism has us saying, we don't need that.
Or it's more like just wanting to see more things where women come to the forefront and they are swapping out their wedding dress for chainmail and all that. So I think it's more about just seeing more books where women come and they're strong leaders. I would watch movies with my family growing up, and I remember so vividly one of my male family members. We're watching this movie, and this woman comes to the rescue, and she comes up with some really cool gadget that saves the day, right? And I remember this person saying, "Huh, smart woman." And I think it's true because you don't really see a lot of women coming up with these really neat gadgets and being the heroine. And I think it's just more about seeing that more often.
I do like to see it, but I'm not a feminist. I want all people to be able to advance and to get the opportunities they deserve. So I think that's why. I mean, I like the idea of stories that are not necessarily a fairy tale where a woman is not rescued by a man, but I do like some of those stories too. So
yeah. Are you okay with obviously stories of women being created that are strong, but you're not so into the rewriting of a story that already existed?
Yeah, no, I think that's my problem. I'm just not into rewriting a fairy tale story like that, and then to say his quote, I guess it just...
You're not into it.
It rubs me wrong,
Yeah, that's
because
fair.
There's a lot of girls that want to be rescued by a prince, or that's the kind of man they're looking for, or they should be looking for. And I don't want young girls and even older girls and young ladies to miss that, because they deserve to be treated like a princess by their man.
Yeah, I think there should just definitely be a reminder, though, that they are strong enough to do it themselves,
Yes. I
In that
totally,
same light.
I just want balance. I guess that's my point. I just want balance in this whole conversation, that women can do anything, but at the same time, we deserve to be treated with respect, and we deserve to be treated like a princess. And I guess I'm just lucky that I have a husband that encourages me to do everything, has encouraged me to go back to school again and again, has supported me in that, but also treats me like a princess. Okay. He doesn't limit me. He thinks I can do anything I want to do in my life, but he still carries my bags, and I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Yeah, both sides are important. You guys tell us in the comments, how do you feel about it? Do you not enjoy reimagining fairy tales from a feminist perspective, or do you think we need more of that? So let us know. And speaking of feminism, Emma Watson recently interviewed one of her favorite authors, Margaret Atwood, for Entertainment Weekly. And in the interview, Watson asked lots of questions to find out what the inspiration was behind Atwood's best-selling book, The Handmaid's Tale.
The Handmaid's Tale is Margaret Atwood's 1985 novel that tells of a future conservative post-apocalyptic America where women essentially lose all of their rights in deference to the power of men. Watson asked what inspired Atwood to write this book. And there were 3 things that she said that inspired her. The agenda of some politicians to restrict human rights in the 70s and 80s and beyond, the idea that America was founded on religious values, and the third inspiration came from her love of sci-fi and her desire to give that genre a try. When asked why she thinks The Handmaid's Tale lives on, she said that it's because all of the horrible things that happen in the book are set in precedent. All of the acts that happen in the book have happened around the world, throughout history, and she says it's based on stuff that people have really done and therefore could do again. So I know we've talked about The Handmaid's Tale before, but why do you think this is a story that lives on? But no spoilers.
Yes. Well, I think a really key point to one of her 3 reasons that she said she was inspired to write it is that she said our country was founded on religious ideologies, and I feel like a lot of people have aversions to that because they'll say things like, well, our country is founded on democracy and freedom. But from her perspective and where she gets the idea for the book and everything that goes into it, her point is that you say it was founded on democracy, but when you really get down to the nitty-gritty of it, we had to add all these amendments to ensure additional freedoms, and it was originally founded on this kind of religious ideology that doesn't necessarily offer equal values to people.
Yeah, and it's important to consider that she is saying that all of these things have happened throughout history, and this is a super long time span in all over the world. It's not just talking about the United States, but history repeats itself, so I think it is an extremely significant book.
The most interesting thing to me about this book is that it was written in 1985, right? That's when it first came out. Now, I know there's some people who think that this book was written in response to Donald Trump and him becoming president and the fears that they have, but no. 1985 was when it first came out, and now it's just popular. So I find that very interesting. But like both of you were saying, go study Greek history. It's not pretty.
Yeah.
And you're right, history repeats itself, and I think that's why this book is so important and so timely.
It is still significant today. I mean, this is happening in different places in the world.
Yeah,
still,
in other countries. Yeah, I mean, people live totally different than us
Mm-hmm.
and experience totally different things, and oppression and racism and sexism and all of that. That still happens today. I have friends who grew up in third world countries, and the stuff that they went through, one guy was a child soldier, one guy lived through the Rwanda genocide. I mean, we can't even imagine it.
Yeah, so I think it's really important too because like Andrea said, history is cyclical and we are experiencing this really strong wave of feminism right now, which is another reason that people are really flocking to this story and that it speaks to us because we're scared of a future that might look like that and we want to do everything to prevent it.
Well, all right, ladies, this has been a great conversation so far, but we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to discuss Tom Brady's forte for writing and how pre-sales of books are affected by the status of the author's name, plus some more author news and Tiffany's book recommendation for the day. So we'll see you in a minute.
So we see the comments coming through, and thank you guys so much for your interaction. Keep them coming. So Tom Brady, let's get to him. He's a quarterback for the New England Patriots and is no stranger to being a businessman. He has written a cookbook and has a meal delivery service through Team Carrot that has done well. But recently he announced that he has written a book that is slated to come out later this year. The TB12 Method is a 320-page self-help book that aims to be the athlete's Bible. It will cover nutrition, lifestyle, and ways to achieve success. But what is most interesting about it is how it's made its way to the bestseller list as soon as it was announced. And that's just for the pre-order. So what do we think about pre-ordering books, and how does name recognition help authors work in a system like this?
Look, I'm going to be the first to say I could not care less about this Tom Brady book or anything about football. That's just not my thing, and that's who I am. But what he is doing well, and that's why pre-ordering is working for him, is he is speaking to his audience, right? So they're announcing this book on like ESPN and like CBS Sports and all of these sports channels. And because of that, his fans, whether or not they enjoy reading or self-help books for that matter, they've gone out and pre-ordered this book, and now he's got a bestseller on his hands.
Yeah.
Well, my question is he cheating the system?
No. No, there was a book I recently pre-ordered on Amazon, and I got the ebook version first, and then they said they're going to send a copy in the mail, and then I get some other free things in advance. So
yeah, you get like goodies if you
Yeah.
pre-order,
Yeah.
which is like incentive as a reader and a consumer to purchase that.
You get like, Super Bowl tickets as bookmarks in your book.
They're like, but on the bottom, it's small print is like, will not get you into the Super Bowl.
So we know on the show we mostly talk about fiction, but we think this is a really important topic. But also we know that many of you have children, and this might be a good book recommendation for them because he talks about how he got to where he is today. And it's just interesting. I mean, he's, 39 as an athlete?
Yeah.
Still playing
Very
football?
successful.
Yeah, very successful. And so I personally love these types of books. I've read every book that John Calipari, the coach of the University of Kentucky, has written.
Nice.
Yes, I love those books. And so that's why we're talking about it today. So it might be good. If you have a child who's an athlete, like this might inspire them to do what they need to do, work hard, eat right, and play hard to get to the peak athletic performance that they want to be in.
And it is his name recognition that will draw people to the book for sure,
True.
because he is successful and he is well known. But for me, it's funny because it has the opposite effect. Because it's his book, like I don't care and I will never
you
read
don't
it.
care,
because
but he is an amazing athlete.
Yeah.
So
And he's going to be playing football till he's like 60. He never gets hit.
True, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I guess as an athlete.
I just can't
Good
dig
book.
it. But for sure, I do show up for pre-sale events and like sign up for stuff. Like, you know, you want to support authors. You want your authors to do well. So as a reader, you can pre-order that book and help launch their book ahead of time so that when it does launch, you know, they can be a bestseller like I guess Tom Brady's going to be, which is so interesting.
Or Jada Sedaris, Death by Finding.
Yeah.
So, Tom, if you're watching, or if any of you know Tom, we would love to have
watching.
you.
Tom's an avid watcher.
We would love to have you on the show and hang out with us. That would be super cool. So if you know him, invite him. We'll love to have him.
Yeah, and you guys, we had a comment from a watcher who wanted to know what books we were currently reading right now. I am not happy to report that I am still reading the second book in the Outlander series, which is taking me forever. I feel like I haven't had any time in the last 3 weeks to get through that. So I am endeavoring through that, and it is really good. And when I'm done, I'm going to take a break and not continue on the path of reading 14 novels in a series. So I'm taking suggestions for what I should venture out into after I get finished with that.
So I'm reading like multiple books right now, but I'm rereading Great Expectations and currently reading The Nest as well.
Yeah.
I am still reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's a great book. It took a very unexpected turn and got very past PG-13, maybe R-ish. And I'm sitting at the pool reading it because I typically only get to read it on the weekends. And I'm like, there's people around me and I'm reading this like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I love it. It's so funny. I was reading a book over the weekend and it was called The Wedding Season and I loved it. It was so sweet and I was like, oh, this is so Hallmark Channel. Like we're going to have to like have a movie come out of this. And so I'm like reading through it and it's like super sweet and cliche. And then all of a sudden there are like these steamy chapters and I'm like at like a family event where I'm just like, you know, casually reading this and I'm like,
oh, hope they don't
I love
miss
when
it
that
here.
happens. It's so funny.
I'm also, because I read fiction and nonfiction, and so I'm also reading a John Maxwell book, which I'm sorry, people might get mad at me, but they're almost all the same, so I just read the headlines, and I just read the quotes on the side, and I get through really quickly, so I'm almost done with that.
Nice.
Just to make myself a better person.
Yeah. Well, tell us in the comments what you guys are reading so maybe we can get some suggestions as well. Okay. And speaking back on Tom Brady, you guys, I don't know if his book is going to win any awards or not. Y'all know how I feel. But we are always interested in following awards and kind of what they stand for. And right now there's a new documentary that's opening soon that chronicles Pulitzer Prize winning books and the readers who love them so much.
Larry Giannikis is one of those people who never dreamed of owning cars or mansions. He dreamed of owning first editions. He is now 64 and became an author with a reference book titled Television Drama Series Programming, A Comprehensive Chronicle, 1947 to 2008. And throughout his life, he amassed a huge collection of books, many of which were Pulitzer Prize winners. His collection includes many autographed and noted copies of the award-winning books and has helped inspire the Pulitzer at 100, which will premiere this Friday in New York City.
The documentary includes many interviews with Pulitzer Prize winners, such as Toni Morris, which I've read a lot of her books, and focuses on awards, the award's namesake, newspaper publisher Joseph Pulitzer, and includes many moments with actors such as John Lithgow and Natalie Portman reading excerpts from the award-winning books.
I think that documentary sounds really interesting because not only does it chronicle his kind of crazy collection of books, which you guys should totally check out on the internet, it chronicles just the lives of the authors and kind of what led them to the book and how it changed their life as an author, because it's a huge deal for them to get accolades like that, and it changes the trajectory of their career. And also it's just cool to hear interviews with like authors that are really cool that we love.
Yeah, for sure. This must have been a huge labor of love.
Yeah, I think so.
Sounds great to me.
Yeah.
I should add it to my list.
You should.
Well, we're always on a lookout for classics that we should be reading, so maybe add this one, some of the ones y'all recommended already. But as always, Tiffany is here to suggest some reads that we should add to our TBR list. So Tiffany, tell us, girl, what's on your nightstand?
Okay, guys, I've got another great book for your nightstand. It's called The Windfall by Diksha Basu. And this book is part satire, part rom-com. It's kind of Sex in the City meets Amy Tan's book, The Joy Luck Club. You get to learn about a new culture in India meeting the New York culture here in America. And I just loved it. I loved everything, how she wrote the book, from the plot. It was a super easy read. I enjoyed it. So the plot is about the family is this mainstream Indian family that gets a huge windfall of money. They then become kind of the one percenters of India. Meanwhile, their story falls around their son Rupak, who is in school in New York. And where they used to kind of brag because he was in film school, in business school, and he was, just the joy, the apple of their eyes. Now they're bragging because he's kind of this lazy guy that's into film. So the shifts of perspective that happen from being this mainstream family in Delhi to the one percenters is kind of interesting to watch. Meanwhile, Rupak, I know this guy, right? I've dated this guy. You've probably dated this guy. And his love struggles are just terrible to watch. He's got a perfectly great girlfriend there in the States, and wow, does he mess it up. He makes a huge mistake that sends him back to India, and they're asking all these questions. How come Americans are called expats and we're called immigrants? There's all these cultural questions. They really bring me in with the smells of the chicken curry and the sandalwood soap and all of these interesting, fun ways to bring you in. So I think that you're going to love reading The Windfall, and I want you to put it on your nightstand, get it for just 99 cents in the flash sale at the end of the show in the comments below. So enjoy Windfall.
Thank you, Tiffany. We will definitely have to check out The Windfall. And speaking of amazing Indian authors that we love, Salman Rushdie is in the news this month with an announcement from Words Alive.
Words Alive is an organization that raises money for low-income and at-risk children and promotes reading for growth. They will be hosting their 14th annual author luncheon as a fundraiser this year. And Salman Rushdie has been selected as the keynote speaker for the event, which will be held in September.
Salman Rushdie was born in India and educated in Great Britain. He is a distinguished writer in residence at New York University. Rushdie has written 18 books, including Midnight's Children, which won the Man Booker Prize for Best Novel in 1981. You might know him from one of his most controversial works, The Satanic Verses, which was published in 1988 and drew many death threats. He lived life on the run for 10 years, avoiding murder attempts and living under an alias. He has a new book coming out this September called The Golden House, which is said to be a page-turning mystery.
So that book sounds good. I'm excited about that. But I want to get back to what is a distinguished writer in residence of New York University? What does he do? And is that not the most fabulous title ever? It sounds like he kind of just lounges around and people just throw accolades upon him. That sounds like a good life.
I just love how he went from man on the run to this
distinguished writer.
Just smoking a cigar casually in a library.
He has a pipe. He's always wearing a really nice silk bathrobe.
He's the true what is that guy from the Dos Equis commercial?
Yeah,
he's the real most interesting man in the world.
There you go.
Yeah.
So does he teach?
I don't actually know. That's what I'm saying. Does he just sit around all day and just write? I'm not really sure, because if he is teaching, that's cool and I want to take a class, but I don't know.
Well, Rushdie has experienced a lot of social and political strife in his life, and we have an update on another author who is causing some strife of his own.
Political provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos is on the news again over his self-published memoir, Dangerous. The DC Metro is pulling ads that Yiannopoulos had arranged to post as they violate the system's guidelines. Yiannopoulos is also in the middle of a lawsuit against Simon & Schuster, who were set to publish his book but canceled the book deal. He is suing for $10 million for the wrongful termination of his book deal. Dangerous launched on July 4th, and fans of Yiannopoulos have been snatching up copies of the book very quickly, though there is some controversy of how many copies have actually sold.
Yeah, representatives of Dangerous announced that they sold the 100,000 copies on the launch date, though other news organizations are digging deeper and touting that as fake news. There were reportedly only 18,000 copies sold on opening day, and when confronted about this, Yiannopoulos and his reps state that in addition to those orders, there have been wholesale orders placed, raising the sales to over 100,000, which might be true, but you guys, to me, does sound a little bit like fake news, like he's just kind of
Really? You don't put all of your trust in Milo Yiannopoulos? Because I have complete faith in him.
Yeah, he's real winner right now. Well, in other entertainment news, the Tony Award-winning and wildly successful musical Dear Evan Hansen is getting a behind-the-scenes book.
Grand Century Publishing, who had a best-selling book about the making of Hamilton, are trying their hand again with a book titled Dear Evan Hansen, Through the Window. The book will release on November 21st and is being billed as a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the musical. What do you guys think? Do we love to have books as companions for our favorite media?
Morgan does not. I think it's interesting, like, if there's cool, like, behind-the-scenes photos and candid things from your favorite people, but
Okay, yeah.
Otherwise, like, I probably wouldn't purchase this. It kind of seems like a thing your grandma might give you as a Christmas present, though, right?
What?
Don't you think?
I mean, you have a great thing you say on the show all the time of, like, something to tie you over, you know?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, otherwise, if you're just really sad because you had this, like, great thing come into your life and then all of a sudden, like, you've already just
gone.
experienced it and it's over, yeah.
Or it
you
costs,
get,
like, $400 to watch it again.
yeah, exactly. But you can have something to, like, keep the experience going, you know?
I guess so.
I guess it just depends on what it is. If it's something
Yeah.
you really, really love,
Yeah.
me, Kentucky basketball, I'm just saying, that's where I read the John Calipari books. I mean, then yeah, I might buy something like this. But
I guess they're writing to their audience again, like
Yeah.
Tom Brady is. Like, those musical fans, those diehards, they're going to
Yeah.
purchase that for sure.
yeah. Well, let us know in the comments if you have some favorite companion books to recommend to us. We have mixed feelings about this. And also, as always, share this post, send us a message, and we will send you a free t-shirt. We have crew neck sizes, crew neck shirts and V-neck shirts. So when you message us, tell us your size, your style, crew or V-neck, and your address, and we'll get that out to you.
And don't forget about the flash sale. So grab a copy of The Windfall for 99 cents for 15 minutes at the conclusion of this episode.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We hope you have a great week. I'm Mo.
I'm Andrea.
And I'm Morgan.
And we will, of course, be back on Friday, July 21st at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time. So until then, keep reading, writing, and being awesome. I know we will. Bye.
Bye.